What up, y'all? It's Damian the homie, and this is my second channel. You can go subscribe to my main channel over here. But also subscribe to this one because, you know, the content is just gonna keep on coming. Just like Johnny Sins, am I right? Am I allowed to say that? Like the new YouTube inappropriate content policy, can I say that? Who knows? Anyway, earlier this month, I made a video about my experience watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 6 Stone Ocean, and I'm glad to see that a lot of y'all liked the video. Yep. Everyone was completely happy with it, and it was my most uncontroversial and unproblematic video ever. Real talk though, I do want to address some mistakes I may have made first before I read some of y'all's comments from the video. The big one that people were debating about was when I said that Jolene was the only JoJo to lose to her villain. First off, I wasn't saying that this is something that I think personally. I mean, if you watch that part, I was just listing off examples that other people usually use when trying to paint Stone Ocean's ending as being a bad one, right? But I mean, I'll be honest, I did actually think that, so my bad. So a lot of people commented that Jonathan also loses to his villain in part 1, right? He dies in a confrontation with Dio, and you know, we all remember that exciting sequence. How exhilarating. And that's 100% true, right? And it really just brings up a question of semantics. So let's get into it. Let's get a little nerdy for a second. Let's pick out the details. I'm gonna post that picture of the guy that y'all hate to see because it makes you uncomfortable. So the real question here is, what does it mean to defeat your villain? You know, the way I look at it, it's preventing them from basically achieving their goals. So in the case of Stone Ocean, I was wrong, right? You know, Jolene does prevent Poochie from completing Made in Heaven. Because of her actions, that leads to his actual physical defeat at the hands of Emporio. In the same way, Jonathan dies to Dio, but his actions lead to the creation of the Joestar bloodline, who would continue to oppose Dio throughout the centuries up until his actual physical defeat at the hand of Jotaro. So yeah, if you look at it that way, Jonathan does prevent Dio in achieving his goals. And even in Jotaro's case, even though he physically defeats Dio in Stardust Crusaders, Dio's evil plans, you know, for gaining more power or whatever the fuck he wants, they're not really stopped until Poochie's defeat and the defeat of the rest of his followers in part 6, which, you know, of course, Jotaro still played a part in. And of course, we know Josuke played a part in stopping Kira's plans, Joseph stops the Pillar Men, and then, you know, Giorno just straight up beats Diavolo right then and right there. You know, there's no need to wait, he just beats his ass. So technically, none of the JoJos failed to beat their villain if we go by that definition. If we just go by a different definition of beating their villain and say it's, you know, beating them in a fight, then a lot of the JoJos besides Jolene would have failed, right? Jonathan fails, Joseph technically fails, Josuke shows he's physically stronger than Kira but still gets like outmaneuvered by him strategically, and it takes like a collaborative effort to bring him down, and obviously, you know, Jolene loses to Poochie as well. So really only Jotaro and Giorno have beaten their villains in a straight up fight. But yeah, I think that first definition is clearly a better one to use. So in that case, I was wrong. Jolene does in fact beat Poochie. And actually, I'm wrong in both definitions too, because by the second definition, multiple JoJos have lost their villains in a fight, not just Jolene. So yeah, I was wrong, but it does prove my overall point that I was trying to make, which is claiming that Jolene lost to Poochie is a dumb argument to use if you're trying to prove that Stone Ocean's ending was a bad one. Okay, now let's look at some of y'all's comments. Ellery Music says, I understand your problems with the pacing and the minor fights, but the way that some of the goofier stand encounters still interest me is that they usually flesh out the power system of stands a lot. If you watch the Bohemian Rhapsody arc, I couldn't tell if you were skipping. It was just a joke. I did actually skip it. The enemy stand is actually one of the strongest ones in the whole part, and it leads to some really creative scenarios. That's fair, but I mean, we're 6 parts into JoJo and 4 parts into the stand era. Like, I'm pretty sure we know how stands work at this point. We don't really need to keep fleshing out the power system. I understand if you mean like seeing new creative ideas for stand powers, that's fair. And I mean, I don't mind seeing that too, but the point I was making is that it's hard to get into that when there are much more pressing plot points to address. Like, I'm sure if the Bohemian Rhapsody fight happened at a different point of the story, like, you know, maybe earlier or something, I mean, I would probably have watched it and been like, oh, okay, that was cool. But because it seems to derail a really exciting part of the main story, it's like, I'm good on this. Fake Robin says, Jolene's stand makes the fights more interesting because at surface level it's not that good, but it really relies on her wits and skill, which really says a lot about her character. That is 100% facts, bro. I love seeing a character with a limited skill set, because then it's a challenge for the writer to come up with, you know, clever ways to use their limited tools to beat an enemy. For example, for me, My Hero Academia was at its best when Deku could only use when he couldn't use full cowling yet, and every time he used one for all, he like blew up one of his limbs or some shit. It was really exciting to see him limited in how he could use his powers, and how every choice he makes is like a strategic one, because you know how it damages his body. It was great to watch. Now, that's not to say that Jolene is limited or incapacitated by her powers in any way, but it's the same idea. Jolene can only do so much with her strings, and yet Araki finds incredibly clever ways for her to use that supposedly simple or limited ability. A good example that comes to mind is when she uses her string to like turn her abdomen into like an infinity loop or whatever the fuck that was. Like shit like that is clever, and it makes sense with what we know of her abilities. Damian, you getting finer every video. That is cap, but appreciate it, bro. Milika or Melissa Bojic, what? They said, fun fact, in the manga, the group of people who beat up Weather Report in the flashback are KKK members wearing the white attire and all. You know, I swear I remember there being people with white hoods in the anime, but clearly I imagined that. But yeah, either way, when I was watching it, I think I already assumed that they were like the KKK or something similar, even without seeing the white hoods and all that dumb shit. Because I mean, I feel like that's the implication you get, right, from the scene. So yeah, it makes sense that that's what they were supposed to be in the manga. I want Damian to make a video talking about how much of a creep Anasui is for 10 minutes straight. By the way, I did not know his name was Anasui, so I'm still not used to calling him that. I was calling him Anastasia the whole time, but yeah, he is pretty weird. I still think it's a very strange decision to have him and Jolene/Irene end up together at the end, but whatever. I don't doubt that he's truly in love with Jolene/Irene and that he cares for her, but like, great. I'm truly in love with Nyan from Twice, but I doubt she cares. You know, this just reminded me of the time people were saying Araki predicted 9/11. Oh god, I don't even want to know the details on that, because the last thing I need to see is goofy JoJo fans like, haha, 9/11 is a JoJo's reference, like, please. Spare me. This person, Kumo Kumiko, says, gotta say, for as much as the show didn't really resonate with you all that much, I want to pay mad respect to going the extra mile and digging up interviews, series info, context, really out here giving us an informed analysis and opinion. Kudos. Sincerely, a JoJo fan who wound up here by accident, or maybe it was fate. Subbed. Appreciate the support, Kumo Kumiko. Glad to have you on the channel, and yeah, that's just the thing I do, I guess. I really like the behind the scenes stuff when it comes to entertainment media. I mean, I'm a movie guy, right? So I'm always into the lore behind a film's production, like how did they create this? Or, you know, how did they make this shot? Or where did the director get the idea for this? And, you know, stuff like that. So it's the same kind of thing here. You know, I couldn't care less about JoJo, clearly, but I do care about Araki as an author/creator. So I'm interested in his mindset in creating this very obviously successful franchise. I've always been the type to like obsessively deep dive into the nitty-gritty details and hidden tidbits of knowledge, you know, behind these beloved properties that we all watch. You can see this in my deep dive into the Ruby franchise, which is a rabbit hole I'm still like low-key trapped in. There's so much behind the scenes there, it's kind of insane. But yeah, that's low-key kind of why I switched the format on the videos on my channel to be more analytical and commentary oriented instead of just like the reaction style where I'm just, you know, sitting and watching and trying to come up with funny jokes for like 3 hours, you know. I think this style suits me better because I think if it's fun for me to explain dumb anime and manga to y'all, like the shit that you would never watch, right? Like one of my most successful videos now is about the new manga from the author of Rent a Girlfriend. I know no one is gonna read that shit, so here I am doing it so you don't have to. And I said it in the JoJo video too, you know, doing the long anime binges and watching a bunch of anime openings was cool for a little while, but it's not really the kind of content I'm I'm into, or even the kind of content I wanted to make or that I intended to make when I started this channel. I'm not gonna lie, I just wanted to rip off YouTubers I admire, like you know, Mr. GG or Jenny Nicholson, you know, those kind of channels. So this is me kind of moving in that direction, I guess. And you know, views be damned, I don't give a fuck. Like, this isn't my job, it's just a fun hobby. I don't need to be doing this, it's just fun for me. So I'm gonna make what I feel like making. Otherwise, thank you all for the comments. Again, most of y'all were very rational and reasonable, even though I basically shit all over the JoJo fan base. And to all those people who are upset, sorry, I guess. The post-JoJo era of the homie Damian is upon us, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Whatever the outcome of it is, as long as I still have fun making videos, I'ma keep doing so regardless of who watches. So if that's cool with y'all, I'm happy to be here to try and entertain you. So as always, leave a like and subscribe to the channel and the main channel, and also hit up the Patreon if you want to support me in general. I don't really need the money for alcohol anymore, but you know, I still need to buy like toothpaste and socks and soap and stuff like that. But I mean, I'll still be fine if you don't donate. I have like a real job, so don't worry about it. Otherwise, anything else? JoJo's Bizarre Adventure sucks. I hate it. It's terrible. All right, that's the video. Peace.